then they fill in the blanks. Picture perfect family, you should be giving thanks. A father who caught you, a mother who stayed, a house full of safety, a foundation is laid. That's the story they write before you open your mouth, before you can tell them which way the wind blows south. They've already decided what your childhood was, because theirs was the Waltons, they assume yours was. Nobody asked what happened behind the door. Nobody asked why you're still fighting the war that ended in childhood but never really ends, when the people who raised you were your first enemies, not friends. Psychopathic, narcissistic, those aren't just words, they're the sound of a child whose crying goes unheard. No foundation, no catching, no one in your corner, just a picture perfect house and you getting smaller. Yeah, the respectable people, the ones who made it through, built their whole identity on dressing with you. Say I had it worse, so what's your excuse? That's not empathy talking, that's ego on the loose. Your trauma is a mirror they refuse to look into, because if your wound is real then something's owed to you. And knowing something to a stranger cost them the story they've been telling themselves since they first tasted glory. Where was the father? Where was the hand? Where was the scaffold? Where did you stand? You built yourself up from the wreckage they left, while they handed out judgments like you failed some test. They don't see the monster, they see the result. They call it a choice, they call it your fault. Can't climb what was never a ladder. The picture was perfect and nothing else mattered. Nothing mattered.
Where was the hand? Where was the scaffold? Where did you stand? You built yourself up from the wreckage they left, while they handed out judgments like you failed some test. They don't see the monster, they see the result. They call it a choice, they call it your fault. Can't climb what was never a ladder. The picture was perfect and nothing else mattered.
Nothing mattered. Nothing mattered. Try to explain it, they load up their gun. Well, I did harder and look what I've done. They're not being cruel, that's the thing you must know. They genuinely cannot see what they've never been shown. Their parents were present, their scaffold was there. The net was below them, they just breathed the air. And the air felt like effort, it felt like they fought. They don't know the difference between caught and untaught. So they sit at the party, the glass in their hand, the BMW gaming, the house on the land, the Hamptons and some of the Ivy League kids. Nobody asks what the other man did. Nobody brags that they built someone up. Nobody toasts to the man in the gutter, lifting the brother who's broken and lost. Doesn't photograph well and they're counting the cost of their own reputation, their own bottom line, while you're trying to figure out how to be fine.
You could go home tonight and nobody will call. Nobody would notice, nobody at all. The reckless mouth at the party just took the last proof
that you matter, that you're here, that the wound is real. They traded your life for a 30-second deal about the salary, the status they climbed while you walked out the door. They drew the chalk outline and called it the finish line. Where was the father? Where was the hand? Where was the scaffold? Where did you stand? You built yourself up from the wreckage they left. You carried the wound and you carried the weight. They don't see the monster, but you know the cost. You know what was taken, you know what was lost. Can't climb what was never a ladder. The picture was perfect and nothing else mattered.
Here is what nobody says out loud. The same people who won't lift a neighbor go to church on Sunday and wonder why the neighborhood is going to hell. Here is the mechanism. You put the man next to you down so you look taller. You dismiss his wounds so yours feels more heroic. You call him lazy so your effort feels more earned. You take the ladder up and you pull it behind you and shake your head at the state of the street below. The neighborhood didn't fail, you failed the neighborhood. And the cost of that failure isn't a statistic. It's the man who went home last Tuesday after someone told him his trauma wasn't real. And he sat in the quiet and thought about not being here anymore. And nobody called because nobody knew, because the picture was perfect and perfect pictures don't bleed. But here is what they couldn't take from you. Every wall you climbed and nobody helped you through. Every morning you got up when the ground wasn't there. Every breath you took in the poisoned air. That is not nothing, that is not small. That is the strongest thing, that is all. You were handed a war before you had a name. You survived the unsurvivable, you're not the same.
Father, where was the hand? Where was the scaffold? Where did you stand? You built yourself up from the wreckage they left. You carried the wound and you carried the weight. They don't see the monster, but you know the cost. You know what was taken, you know what was lost. Can't climb what was never a ladder. The picture was perfect and nothing else mattered.